All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our call. It's great to have all of you here this evening. You are here to learn about something very important. There's two things we're going to cover. One relates to your health and wellness. The other relates to the opportunity that creates in serving other people. My name is Kareem Fremji. I'm a professor at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition here in Toronto. And I'm also a nutritionist, and I've been helping clients for quite a long time with their wellness needs. So today I get to share from that perspective, but I also get to share an opportunity that is opening up here in North America, as well as around the world, where we can make a difference, a huge impact in people's well-being. So we all know that people want to feel good, they want to stay fit, and they want to be healthy. That's a given. However, there's something monumental happening in the world today, and that is there's an abundance of health issues that people are facing today. And the question is, what is going on? Why are people suffering from so many health conditions if we have such a robust medical system, so much knowledge, so much insight? Why are people still not getting better? This all comes down to this idea of Hippocrates, and he once said this: let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And I'm sure we would all agree that makes sense. If we eat properly, then it will act and help us stay healthy. But there's something that's happened to our food system that has changed the entire dynamic. In the past, we went from eating foods that were from our local environment. They were picked right. We had soils that were full of minerals, and we had a really good balance of our vitamins, our minerals, our fibers, and the right types of fats that make up our constitution. If you look back and see what your grandparents or great grandparents were eating, you'll notice it is very different from the food system of today. Today, our food is low in nutrients, it's high in sugar, it's full of empty calories, it's low in fiber, many of which are convenience foods, or they're foods that we pick up from somebody else preparing them, like a restaurant or a takeout. And we've lost a balance in many key nutrients, including what we're going to focus on tonight, which is our essential fatty acids, our omega-6 and omega-3. Now, the reason I bring up omega-6 and omega-3 is because this did not exist before the early 1900s. Before 1909, we were not using vegetable oils. Now, this is really key here because I said, if you go back to what your ancestors were eating, you'll notice that their diet was completely different, including the type of fats that they were cooking with and consuming. If you look at here, the growth of the Industrial Revolution also meant that we began to take oils that we were using in machinery and finding new purposes for them. So we began refining corn, canola, soy, safflower, cottonseed oil, and rice bran oil in a very industrial process. And that made these oils much more inexpensive, very cheap to use. And we began replacing what our ancestors were using, and we replaced them with vegetable oils. So we went away from the butter, the tallow, the coconut oil, the olive oils, and so on and so forth. And we moved towards using a lot of cheap soybean, canola, or corn oil. Now, if you look at the slide here, you'll notice on the right-hand side, it's not an easy process to press oil out of these seeds. It goes through almost 12 different industrial processes before it becomes an edible oil. So obviously, that would not have existed for your great-grandparents or your grandparents. And so this food, this type of fatty acid, is new to our diet, and it's causing some tremendous harm that people are unaware of. So what happened is that our ratio of omega-6, which is found in these seed oils, to omega-3, which is normally found in fish, began to change. Our DNA was designed to have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Science says we can get away with having a 3-to-1 ratio, which means 3 times the omega-6 to omega-3. But since this process began in the 1960s, our ratio began to get saturated with more and more omega-6 from those oils. So we went to a 4-to-1, a 5-to-1. And in today's world, when we get people tested, they're a 10-to-1, 25-to-1, or even a 40-to-1. What that means is that their bodies now have anywhere from 25 times to 40 times the omega-6 content than omega-3. Now you're going to ask me the question, why does that matter? What makes this so important? Let me explain why. Omega-6s have an essential function in your body. That essential function is that it is the cause of inflammation. So whenever you get a cut and it becomes swollen, it turns red, it becomes hot, that entire process relies on omega-6. Everybody got that? So omega-6 is the creator of inflammation in the body. However, on the other hand, omega-3 is the opposite. It actually turns off the inflammatory cycle. And this is why you need a balance of both. If you ever get injured, you do want some inflammation in the acute situation, but then a couple of days later, you want the body to turn off that inflammatory process. Now, let me ask you a question. If you have 25 or 40 times the omega-6 in your body and not enough omega-3, do you think your body will turn off the inflammatory process? The answer is no. So this is why we have so many human beings walking on our planet today that are out of balance and they're suffering from a lot of inflammatory issues. We call this the silent killer because it's like a fire burning inside of your body, and the symptoms is affecting all of your tissues. This means reduced brain function, hair quality decreases, reduced heart function, your skin loses elasticity, all of your organs don't work properly, and of course, you're going to feel those aches and pains throughout your body as well. So really, the root of these issues that people are facing is an imbalance of omega-6 to omega-3. Now, just so you understand the root cause of all of these health issues, here's a list where we show the imbalance of omega-6 to omega-3 and what the outcome is in people's bodies. So let me ask you a question. How many of you know somebody in your family, in your community, in your workplace, or even right there as your partner or yourself that have cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity and metabolic syndrome, autoimmune disorders, arthritis and joint pain, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, hormonal imbalances, skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, and acne, chronic migraines and headaches, depression and anxiety, cancer, cancer risk and tumor growth, respiratory issues, insulin resistance, all the gastrointestinal disorders like IBS and Crohn's, sleep disorders, and reduced immune function. And the list goes on and on. I hope you now understand that all of these are manifestations of inflammation in the body. Each one is an inflamed tissue, but in different parts of the body. We just call them different dis-eases. Does everybody get that? But at the root cause, there's an inflammatory process that's out of control because the body doesn't have the omega-3 to shut off the inflammatory process and heal that tissue. So I want you to understand how pervasive these seed oils are. In fact, if we look at the risk of death by diet or lifestyle factors, severe obesity, heavy smoking, and vegetable oil are in the top 3. No wonder why so many people are feeling sick, feeling inflamed, and they're not doing well. Also, if we look at vegetable oil and the cause of cancer, there's been numerous studies that show those taking vegetable oil versus a control group had higher incidences of cancer as well. So this is truly the hidden crisis that is in everyone's blind spot. They don't realize that they need to be in balance, that omega-6 and omega-3 ratio is critical, but overlooked as a cause of inflammation. And it's probably the most important number for your health and longevity that you didn't even know or even got tested for. In fact, the omega-3 index may be more predictive of risk than LDL cholesterol. And how many of you go to your doctor, get your blood work done, and you want to know what your LDL cholesterol is? People don't realize that your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is probably even more important than that. So like I said, the average that people are at right now is 25 to 1, but really we need to be back down to 3 to 1 if we want to be healthy. So why does this matter? Omega-6s and omega-3s, they integrate into every cell. So here's a picture at the bottom there. You'll see this cell is the basic building block of all of your tissues. Your tissues then turn into your organs, and then the organs turn into systems of the body. So what we're saying is that whenever we ingest omega-6s and omega-3 oils, they don't get burned off for energy. We actually build our cells out of them. Here's a look at the cell membrane. I know this is a little bit more sciencey than you may have been expecting. However, I want you to see that omega-6s and omega-3s actually become a component of every cell in your body. And you have over 40 trillion cells. So every time you're cooking with vegetable oils or eating out or you're eating a packaged good and you turn it over and you read corn, canola, soy, or safflower oil, just know that all of those oils are getting embedded into your tissues. And it's like a little match, a match that's ready to be lit. And the more of them you have, the more likely you're going to have a fire. And the only thing to put it out is the omega-3. And that's why it has to be in balance. It's like the water that puts out the fire. So what this is doing at the cellular level is that it is making your cells more hard and rigid, which means it's very hard for nutrients to get into your cell and waste to get out. So it's really changing the dynamic of every single cell in your body. And like I showed you just moments ago, your cells make up your tissues make up all of your organs make up all of the systems of your body. So at that level, it's actually making it unable to function properly. However, when we have enough omega-3, it makes our cell membranes more soft and flexible. Nutrients can get in, waste products can get out, and we finally have a cell that works well. We need to return back to balance. So like I mentioned, there is this ratio. If it's within a 1-to-1, 2-to-1, or 3-to-1, you can see the iceberg, you can navigate, and you're going to be in better shape than ever before. But if you're in that red zone, if you're a 10-to-1, 15-to-1, 25-to-1, it's like going towards an iceberg and you don't know how big the problem really is. And it's going to take a long time for you to steer away from it if you don't get back into balance. In fact, you're going straight towards the iceberg, and that could literally sink your ship. And that's why so many people today are suffering. They're inflamed and they're not getting the help they need because the regular medical system is only about dealing with the symptoms, but not getting to the root cause. So what are we doing at Zinzino that's transforming the world? The first thing we're doing is we're encouraging people to take the test. We have something called the Balance Test, which is a in-home dry blood spot test where you can do this in the convenience of your home. You don't have to go to the doctor and get a whole bunch of blood work done. It's a simple prick. You put it on that little card, and it is then looked at anonymously by one of the most prestigious labs in the world. We partnered up with Vitas Analytics out of Norway, and they're the official partner of Harvard University, University of Cambridge, the Max Planck Institute, and even the Olympics. So when they get your blood spot test, they look at it and they will then understand exactly what's happening with your omega-6s, omega-3s, and tell you what your ratio is. Now, we're not new at this. Zinzino started testing over 20 years ago. And to date, we have now tested over 1.5 million human beings on our planet, meaning we have the largest understanding of the omega 6, omega 3 crisis. And I'm now going to share with you what we found all around the world and what people are facing. So in North America, when people do the test, 99% of people are not in balance, so they fail the test. In Europe, where we would think they eat a lot more fish, 95% of people are not in balance. In the Middle East, 98%. In South America, 97%. In Africa, 99%. And in Asia, where they do eat a lot more seafood, 98% still fail the balance test, which means 97% of people walking around right now are not in balance. They are likely in a state of inflammation, and that's going to turn into health issues if they don't take action. So what's great about Zinzino is within 2 to 3 weeks of you doing your dry blood spot test, they send you a complete report letting you know where you stand. You'll know your ratio. You'll know exactly what the constitution is of every single red blood cell in your body, letting you know, are you in balance or are you in the danger zone? Now, this is very critical because information like this will allow you to make some really important decisions about your health and well-being. In fact, catching this right now could mean the difference between a chronic health issue and a shorter life expectancy because you can take action on this information. And that's why this is such an important information for you tonight to really consider doing and sharing with other people, because your doctor won't know about it. And most likely other practitioners aren't aware of it, but the person who invited you here on this call tonight thought of you and felt that you should know this information. So number one, you get to know what your results are. And what's great about that is the fact that if you are in balance and you are okay, you get your money back for the test. But if you're not in balance, then you now know that there's something you need to do to get back into balance. Now, what's great about Zinzino is we don't just have the test, we actually have the solution to get you back into balance within 120 days. So it takes a very short period of time of being on our protocol to actually get back into balance so that you can now be in the top 3 to 5% of all human beings on our planet. And when we do get people back into balance, they start to see that their brain function improves. They're thinking more clearly. They're more sharp. They're sleeping better. They notice that on the outer end, their hair and skin seem to be a lot better, more hydrated, less wrinkles. Their heart function improves. Their inner organs begin to work correctly. Their joints and muscles experience less pain and inflammation, and they start to feel good again. And that can happen in a relatively short period of time. Now, all of this is supported by one of the best scientific advisory boards on our planet. We have patented products, processes, our own manufacturing and research and development, plus a lot of studies that are going to be in published journals very shortly about the work we've done to help people get back into balance. So what is the solution? How do we get people back into balance? Omega-3s are primarily found in fatty fish, but most people don't eat enough fish to be back into balance. And that's what our global numbers have shown. Even in countries where seafood is very common, we still find that 97% of the population is still not in balance with their omega-3s to their omega-6s. So a lot of other people have thought that they should take a fish oil. Now, many of you might go to your nutrition cabinet right now and open it up, and you'll probably see a bottle of fish oil or something in your fridge. And you'll wonder, if I've been taking my fish oil consistently for a long time, shouldn't I already be in balance? The question is, you better test and find out, because what we're finding is that even though people are on a regular fish oil, it still isn't working. The question is, why? And this is where the balance oil comes in. It is not a fish oil. It is actually much more than that. The key magic here, the key science here is something called polyphenols. If you have something to write down, or you're going to remember this, write down the word polyphenols, because polyphenols is actually the game changer in the entire omega-3 industry. And here's why. When algae in the oceans, they make fatty acids, they actually bind them to polyphenols. These are like antioxidants. They're like plant compounds that protect the fatty acids, and they ensure that they don't go rancid. And then the small little fish eat the algae. That's how they get their fatty acids, but they also get in a dose of polyphenols. Then we are supposed to eat those fish, and when we get those fatty acids, we get them with the polyphenols. This is why eating fish consistently works. But in today's world, with our polluted oceans and the heavy metals and the plastics and the cost of eating fish, a lot of people just don't do it because of the hazard. Now, the fish oil industry said, okay, we need the omega-3s, so we're going to press the oil out of the fish, but then we have to clean it. Now, when they clean fish oil and they remove the heavy metals and they remove the plastics, they also remove all of the polyphenols. What this means is that the fish oil is missing the magic ingredient. The polyphenols are what protects the fatty acids and actually move them into the cell membranes that we talked about. This is why regular fish oils are not helping, and in many cases, they could be doing more harm. So what Zinzino created is something called BalanceOil. It's 60% fatty fish and 40% polyphenol-rich olive oil. What they discovered is that there's another source of polyphenols, but from the land, that is very clean, that we can press out of pre-harvest olives, and they can have the highest concentration of polyphenols on the planet. So they combine this very rich polyphenol-rich olive oil and bind it back to the fish oil, recreating a balanced oil. And so when people take it, it actually does what it's supposed to do, which is get into our cell membranes, get into our tissues, and restore that balance and protect our well-being. And again, this is not available in any health food store. It's exclusive to Zinzino, and that's what gives us a huge opportunity to help people with a product that works, but at the same time, only available through Zinzino. Now, what makes this also very unique is the fact that we dose it by weight because we're trying to saturate all of your tissues. So unlike a regular fish oil or an omega product that you might be aware of, it doesn't just say, oh, take 2 to 4 capsules and not tell you why. What we do is we tell you exactly how much you need to take based on your weight, and that's what's going to get you back into balance within 120 days. Now, we do have all of our certifications, Friends of the Sea, Informed Sport, and of course, everything is done with the highest CGMP manufacturing processes. Now, in Canada, to do the test, it's $166 Canadian. But what Zinzino also does is they include a free bottle of the Balance Oil. Now, think about that for a minute. If you go to your doctor and you request an omega test, it might cost you anywhere from $130 to $180 for one test, depending on which province you're in. They're not going to do a complete breakdown. They might just tell you your ratio. What we do is we give you the test, but we know 95% of people will fail. So Zinzino includes a free bottle of their Balance Oil because they know right after you take the test, send it in, but get on the Balance Oil immediately. Why waste 2, 3, 4 weeks when you know the chances are you're going to fail the test? So we give you the bottle, you start taking it, and the monthly cost for the Balance Oil thereafter is only $56 Canadian, which means it's very affordable and in line with all the other omega supplements on the marketplace. Now, the reason I know this is because I used to run a health food store here in Toronto for over 5 years. So I'm familiar with the hundreds of different brands that are in the health food stores. And when I saw this, I was completely blown away because of the quality, the price, and the fact that it works. Now, here's the brilliant thing about getting tested. When you do the test and get on the BalanceOil, after 4 months, Zinzino will send you a second test, but for free. And what this will show you is the difference between where you started and how you got back into balance by just adding in the BalanceOil into your routine. So this is the future of nutrition. We call it test-based nutrition. Why guess when you can test and then show that it actually worked? And that's what we're doing with our clients around the world. We're getting them tested, showing them where they're at when it comes to their inflammatory markers, putting them on the BalanceOil, sending them the second test for free, and now they know they're back in balance, but product actually worked. Now you might say, I already take a fish oil. That's why if you do the test and you're not in balance, it will reveal to you if your supplements are actually working or not. Is your diet strategy working or not? And if it isn't, you now have the solution right there in your hands in a very affordable fashion. A few slides ago, I did mention that if you do the test and you are in balance, so you do get a 1-to-1, 2-to-1, or 3-to-1 score, you get the 166 back as a refund, and you get to eat the bottle of BalanceOil. That's the commitment that Zinzino has in place because we really want everyone to find out where they are and how we can get them back into balance. Now, we have all of our certifications, like I said, and other parts of the world, like the United States, if that's where you're calling in from, we do have a vegan version of the BalanceOil. We also have a water-soluble version. We have a version for kids, and et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted you to know that we do have one that is the official endorsement by the Vegan Society, and they love our BalanceOil, which is a vegan version as well. Now, who needs omega-3s? Everybody. It's an essential fat. It's a composition of every cell of our body. So whether it's a baby, a child, a woman who's pregnant, somebody in their prime, and somebody who's just starting to age or the elderly, we all need omega-3s because we need to control inflammation. And we have different tissues that get affected at different ages. So we all need to make sure that we're getting enough omega-3s to build our brains and our nervous system at the beginning of life and maintain it throughout life, especially as we age. And then as we go through our life, we get injured, we get exposed to toxins and stress and radiation, and we have to be able to defend ourselves from that inflammatory process. So this is genuinely a food everyone needs to incorporate in their diets, but it's missing right now. And that's what all of our tests are showing. So there's tremendous health benefits, but the key here is this statement. 95% of people taking Zinzino's balance supplements are back in balance after 120 days. Think about that for a minute. Imagine all the people that are suffering right now. You might be one of them. If you knew there was a solution that could help your body regain balance and that it wasn't being addressed right now, wouldn't you want to do that in a short 4 months? And that's what's available by getting on our BalanceOil. Now, obviously, getting and breaking that cycle of inflammation is, in my opinion, one of the most important things you can do for your well-being. But we do have other products that can help individuals with other health issues. One of my favorites that I just wanted to highlight is Viva Plus. How many of you know somebody that's suffering from anxiety, depression, they're not sleeping well, they feel burnt out? Viva is a solution for that. The BalanceOil is foundational to build nerve tissue, but to work on neurotransmitters, those are the signals that are running your entire operation, your entire brain chemistry. Those require specific herbs. And one of the most profound ones that has clinical research backing it up is a flower called saffron. Now, some of you may know that saffron in Middle Eastern countries is known as gold. One flower produces only 3 stigmas, and you need thousands of flowers to get an effective dose. But when Viva Plus it's a high patented version of saffron with vitamin C from acerola berries, magnesium from seawater, a little touch of iodine, and some B vitamins. And when you take it, even in the first few doses, you notice your stress level just go down. You notice you begin to relax. You notice that when you sleep, you get into deep sleep. You notice that when you wake up, you feel happy and you feel vitality. And so it's been one of the most amazing products I've added into my protocols with my clients, and they just feel so much better. So I just wanted to mention that today because I know so many people are also suffering from that anxiety, stress, depression, and so on. And we have a solution that adds on top of the balance oil to help with that as well. Now, some of you may know somebody that has severe skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, acne, or even just wrinkles. The balance oil works from inside out, but topically, we do have something that can rejuvenate the skin as well. Now, coming from Europe, Zinzino is a company from Norway. We are just in the process of opening up in North America, as well as in the Philippines and India and some other regions. But you'll notice that we have over 100 Olympic athletes and teams that are now using Zinzino as their source of holistic nutrition. And so we have a whole PDF that the person that invited you here tonight can share with you with all of these top performers, adding the balance oil into their routine along with our supplements because they notice the difference. Everything we're doing is test-based. When they do our test, then they take the balance oil and they test again, they realize that nothing can compare because our blood test shows our products work and it gets them into balance. Now, if you're at that high level of sports and you're competing for gold medals in the Olympics, you're going to choose the best of the best. You're going to choose things that actually make a difference. And that's why a lot of these athletes are now aligning themselves with using Zinzino and talking about it as well on their social media profiles. Now I'm going to shift a little bit. I've now identified to you that we have a huge health issue. People don't know what that issue is until they get tested. We have the test. And then we also have the solution to the problem.